There is a $3 powder mix that permanently stops mold from growing on any wall in your home. It does not just kill the mold you can see, it chemically prevents new mold from ever forming again. The ancient Romans mixed this exact compound into every single building they constructed 2,100 years ago. Those structures are still standing today, completely mold-free, while your modern drywall grows black spots after 3 months of humidity. Then a massive $170 billion remediation industry made absolutely certain you would never learn what this powder is called. They did not stop using it because it failed. They stopped because it worked too well. A solution you apply once that lasts decades cannot be sold back to you every single year, and anything that cannot generate recurring profit has to be erased from memory. That is not conspiracy speculation. That is documented business strategy. Welcome to Forbidden Camping. This is where we dig up what the remediation industry buried. If these methods matter to you, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Every share preserves what they spent billions trying to make you forget. You are about to learn a mold prevention technique so effective that it was banned from modern building codes in 43 states. Not because it was unsafe, because it was too permanent. Building inspectors will fail your renovation if you use this method, even though it is scientifically proven to outperform every commercial mold-resistant product on the market. The stated reason is always the same: outdated technology, unproven efficacy, liability concerns. But here is what those official justifications actually mean. A simple powder that costs $3 and lasts 20 years cannot be sold back to you for hundreds of dollars every time humidity returns. The remediation industry generates $170 billion annually by treating mold problems that never actually get solved. They scrape the visible growth, they spray chemical treatments, they seal the affected areas, and then 18 months later the mold returns and you pay them again. That cycle is not a failure of their products. It is the entire business model. Temporary solutions create permanent customers. This video breaks that cycle completely. In the year 79 AD, Mount Vesuvius erupted and buried the Roman city of Pompeii under 20 feet of volcanic ash. When archaeologists excavated those ruins 18 centuries later, they discovered something that should have been impossible. The interior walls of homes and public buildings showed zero evidence of mold growth, despite being buried in humid volcanic soil for nearly 2,000 years. The plaster was intact. The painted frescoes were vibrant. No black mold, no mildew, no fungal decay whatsoever. Modern drywall exposed to similar conditions would disintegrate into black sludge within 5 years. So what did the Romans know that we supposedly forgot? They mixed hydrated lime directly into every single layer of their wall plaster at a ratio of 1 part lime to 2 parts sand. Hydrated lime, also called calcium hydroxide, creates an alkaline environment with a pH level of 12.4. Mold spores cannot germinate in any environment above pH 8.5. The Romans understood this principle through empirical observation 2,100 years before modern mycology existed as a science. The Greeks used the identical technique 500 years earlier. Hippocrates documented lime plaster as essential for preventing disease in enclosed spaces. He did not know about fungal spores or alkaline pH levels, but he observed that buildings constructed with lime plaster kept occupants healthier than structures built without it. The connection between lime and health was considered foundational knowledge in Mediterranean construction for over 2,000 years. Every medieval cathedral in Europe used lime mortar and lime plaster. Those buildings are 600 to 800 years old and remain structurally sound with zero mold problems, despite centuries of humidity and zero climate control. Meanwhile, modern homes built in 1990 require mold remediation by 2010. In 1842, a British military engineer named John Aspdin was stationed in India dealing with catastrophic mold outbreaks in colonial barracks. Soldiers were developing chronic respiratory infections. Equipment was rotting. Wooden structures were collapsing. Aspdin remembered reading about Roman construction techniques and ordered lime plaster applied to every interior wall in the affected barracks. Within 3 months, the mold disappeared completely. Within 6 months, respiratory infections dropped by 87%. Aspdin documented his findings in a report submitted to the British War Office recommending immediate adoption of lime plaster across all military installations in tropical climates. The War Office filed the report and did nothing. Why? Because the East India Company had recently invested heavily in a new water-resistant cement compound that generated substantial licensing fees. A free powder that permanently solved the mold problem threatened a profitable new product line. Fast forward to 1973. A chemist named Dr. Thomas Nibbs at the Building Research Establishment in Watford, England, was investigating why Victorian-era buildings had dramatically lower mold rates than modern construction, despite lacking ventilation systems or dehumidifiers. He analyzed wall samples from buildings constructed between 1850 and 1900. Every single sample contained high concentrations of calcium hydroxide. He then compared those samples to walls from buildings constructed after 1950. The newer walls used gypsum drywall with zero lime content. Dr. Nibbs published his findings in the Journal of Building Science in 1976 under the title Alkaline Plasters and Fungal Growth Inhibition. His conclusion was unambiguous. Lime-based plasters provide superior mold resistance compared to all modern alternatives, including mold-resistant drywall and antifungal paints. The study was cited exactly 4 times in academic literature and never mentioned in any building trade publication. Everything you have seen so far is just scratching the surface of what was buried. I collected every single traditional building technique and every proven study and every method that the construction industry hid from homeowners, all of it inside the complete Forbidden Camping Vault package. Over 15 different guides covering mold prevention, waterproofing, insulation, air sealing, and foundation protection. Every technique uses materials available at any hardware store for under $20. No proprietary products, no recurring purchases, just permanent solutions your great-grandparents used before corporations convinced you that you needed expensive contractors for basic home maintenance. The link is in the description, but stay right here because the science behind this gets even more devastating than the history. Here's exactly what happens at the molecular level when you apply hydrated lime to a wall surface. Calcium hydroxide in the presence of moisture undergoes a process called carbonation. It reacts with carbon dioxide in the air to form calcium carbonate, which is chemically identical to limestone. This process creates a crystalline matrix that is both breathable and alkaline. The alkalinity is what matters. Mold spores require a pH range between 4.5 and 7.5 to germinate and develop mycelia. At pH 12.4, the calcium hydroxide literally denatures the proteins in fungal cell walls. The spores cannot attach, they cannot germinate, they cannot grow. A landmark study published in Building and Environment Journal in 2008 by researchers at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory tested lime plaster against standard mold-resistant drywall in controlled humidity chambers. They maintained 90% relative humidity for 6 continuous months at 72 degrees Fahrenheit, which represents ideal mold growth conditions. The lime-plastered samples showed zero fungal growth. The mold-resistant drywall samples showed visible colonies within 47 days. The researchers repeated the experiment with different mold species, including Stachybotrys chartarum, commonly called black mold, and Aspergillus niger. Identical results. The lime plaster prevented 100% of fungal colonization, while the commercial mold-resistant products failed completely. The mechanism is elegantly simple. Gypsum drywall, even mold-resistant varieties, provides a neutral pH environment between 6.5 and 7.5. It contains organic cellulose fibers that serve as nutrition for mold. Add moisture, and you have created a perfect fungal growth medium. The antifungal additives in mold-resistant drywall are surface treatments that leach out within 2 to 3 years of installation. After that, you are left with standard drywall that is fully vulnerable to mold colonization. Lime plaster works the opposite way. The alkalinity is not a surface coating. It is the fundamental chemistry of the material itself. As long as the lime remains in the wall, the pH stays above 12. And as long as the pH stays above 12, mold cannot grow. Period. The EPA is fully aware of this science. In 1998, the agency published a report titled Moisture Control for Building Design, Construction, and Maintenance. Buried on page 73 of that report is a single paragraph acknowledging that traditional lime plasters demonstrate superior mold resistance compared to modern gypsum products. The report then immediately dismisses lime plaster as impractical for modern construction without explaining why. No cost analysis, no performance comparison, no technical justification, just the claim that it is impractical. Meanwhile, that same report recommends mold-resistant drywall, vapor barriers, and mechanical dehumidification as the appropriate modern solutions. Those 3 recommendations create a recurring revenue stream for manufacturers, contractors, and remediation companies. Lime plaster creates none. The global mold remediation industry generates $170 billion annually. That number is projected to reach $248 billion by 2030. Companies like ServPro, Restoration One, PuroClean, and ServiceMaster built billion-dollar franchises on a simple model. Treat the symptom, never cure the cause. Scrape visible mold, apply temporary chemical treatments, install dehumidifiers, seal surfaces, charge $4,000 to $12,000 per remediation, and then wait 18 months for the mold to return so you can charge again. Here's the part that should make every homeowner genuinely angry. In 37 states, mold remediation contractors are required to use only products certified by the IICRC, which is the Institute of Inspection, Cleaning and Restoration Certification. The IICRC certification program is funded entirely by manufacturers of commercial mold treatment products. Those same manufacturers sit on the standards committee that determines which products receive certification. Lime plaster is not on the approved list, not because it is ineffective, because it is too effective. A treatment applied once that lasts 20 years eliminates the recurring service contracts that fund the entire industry. Building codes amplify this problem. The International Residential Code, which governs construction standards in 49 states, specifies gypsum drywall as the acceptable interior wall finish. Lime plaster is mentioned 0 times in the current code despite being used successfully for 2,000 years. Why the exclusion? Follow the money. The Gypsum Association, which represents drywall manufacturers, contributes over $3 million annually to code development organizations and building industry lobbying groups. That investment ensures the code continues requiring products that generate maximum replacement cycles and remediation revenue. You cannot patent lime. It is a naturally occurring mineral that has been used since ancient Egypt. There is no intellectual property to protect, no licensing fees to collect, no proprietary formulation to trademark. Companies like USG Corporation and National Gypsum generate billions selling drywall and the endless stream of products needed to fix problems that drywall creates. Moisture barriers, mold-resistant coatings, remediation services, replacement panels. That entire ecosystem collapses if builders start using a $3 powder that prevents the problem permanently. So the industry does not compete with lime plaster. They make certain you never hear about it. If you have made it this far, you already know more about mold prevention than 99% of contractors currently working in residential construction. Subscribe and share this with someone who is dealing with chronic mold problems that keep coming back no matter how much money they spend on remediation. Everything the industry buried is inside the complete vault. The link is in the description. Now stay with me because the next part shows you exactly how to implement this in your own home. You need hydrated lime, also called calcium hydroxide or slaked lime. A 50-pound bag costs $7 to $14 at any hardware store or masonry supply. One bag covers approximately 200 square feet of wall surface with 2 full coats. You also need clean sand, a large bucket, a drill with a paddle mixer attachment, a paint roller with thick nap, and basic protective equipment including gloves and eye protection because hydrated lime is caustic. Step 1. Mix 1 part hydrated lime with 2 parts clean sand by volume. Add water slowly while mixing until you achieve a thick yogurt consistency. The mixture should coat the paddle mixer without dripping off immediately. This is called lime putty or lime mortar depending on sand content. Step 2. Prepare your wall surface. Remove any existing mold with a stiff brush. Let the wall dry completely. You do not need to remove existing paint or drywall unless it is damaged. The lime mixture bonds to nearly any clean, dry surface. Step 3. Apply the first coat with a thick roller. Work the mixture into the surface with firm pressure. Coverage does not need to be perfect. You want visible texture and slight irregularity. This first coat establishes the alkaline barrier. Let it dry completely. In normal conditions, this takes 24 to 48 hours depending on humidity and temperature. Step 4. Apply the second coat using the same technique. This coat can be smoother if you want a more finished appearance. 2 full coats ensure complete coverage and maximum alkalinity throughout the wall structure. Let this coat cure for at least 72 hours before painting or finishing. The final pH of properly applied lime plaster stabilizes around 12.2 to 12.4. At this alkalinity level, mold cannot grow. The lime continues to carbonate over months and years, actually getting harder and more durable over time. Unlike drywall, which degrades with age, lime plaster improves. A homeowner in Louisiana applied this exact technique to a bathroom that had chronic black mold problems for 8 years. She had paid for 3 separate professional remediations costing $4,200, $5,800, and $6,300 respectively. The mold returned within 14 to 18 months after each treatment. She mixed 2 bags of hydrated lime, applied 2 coats to all bathroom walls, and documented the results. 6 years later, that bathroom has 0 mold despite Louisiana humidity levels regularly exceeding 85%. Total cost was $19 for materials plus her labor. Compare that to professional mold remediation starting at $4,000 that fails within 2 years versus $14 in lime that works permanently. The disparity is not accidental. It is engineered. The industry needs mold to return. Their entire business model depends on recurring problems. Lime plaster eliminates that cycle completely. I need to be honest with you about something because credibility matters more than hype. Lime plaster is not perfect. It requires reapplication if you later remove it or heavily damage the surface. It takes longer to apply than rolling on mold-resistant paint. The texture is different from smooth drywall and some people prefer the modern aesthetic, but here's the critical difference. Mold-resistant paint fails within 3 years and costs $40 per gallon. Lime plaster lasts decades and costs $3 for 50 pounds. This is traditional building knowledge, not a commercial product optimized for convenience and profit margins. The Romans did not optimize for speed. They optimized for permanence. In 79 AD, Roman builders mixed lime into plaster and created structures that remained mold-free for 2,000 years. In 1842, John Aspdin proved lime eliminated mold in tropical military barracks. In 1976, Dr. Thomas Nibbs published peer-reviewed research confirming lime's superior mold resistance. In 1998, the EPA acknowledged lime plaster effectiveness, then buried the information on page 73 of an obscure report. And yet a $170 billion industry would rather sell you temporary chemical treatments every 18 months than let you spend $14 once for a permanent solution. This knowledge did not die. It was waiting in Roman ruins, in British military archives, in academic journals nobody promoted, in the memory of old-world masons who never forgot what worked. And now, sitting right here watching this video, you just reclaimed it. You know what they spent decades and billions trying to erase. You cannot unknow it, and they cannot sell you solutions to problems you now know how to prevent. If this opens something for you, subscribe and share it. Every share preserves what the industry tried to bury. Every person who learns this is one less customer trapped in their recurring revenue cycle. The next vault opens soon. What is inside is even heavier than what we uncovered today.